Bama suddenly has a little bit of drama because their quarterback's hobbling around as he did last year, but this time it's the other ankle.
Right.
And they've got a date with Arkansas coming up this Saturday that nobody's too concerned about. Auburn, of course, 51-10 against the Hogs last week, outdid themselves compared to what I thought maybe Arkansas would be able to put up against Auburn. But what's being talked about? What's the prognosis? I know Nick Saban said right after the game he was looking at 2 to 3 weeks. So if that's the case, boy, it puts that LSU game in jeopardy.
Well, and with Tua's injury, because yes, that's definitely been the conversation for a period of time here in Montgomery and through the state of Alabama. But with his injury, the 2 to 3 weeks thing could totally put him in a path to be starting against LSU. The thing is, it's one small setback, one little bitty hiccup when it comes to the moment that he's actually getting on that leg and starting to work a little bit more on it. That is where you're going to start, seeing, okay, be very smart with this and be cautious with it. Because like you were talking about, it's the other leg. Last year, this was actually his plant leg whenever he was throwing the football. This year, it's the leg that he's landing on. So that's part of the reason why you see some optimism in the time that it's going to take for him to get back. The problem is, when he came back in that time period, it wasn't like he was the same Tua that we remembered, and a little bit of his game was taken away. You saw that a little bit against Oklahoma after that first quarter. You also saw that definitely against Clemson. He wasn't the same quarterback. That's where the worry is going to be for Tua. The problem with it is you do have a game this week. Luckily, it's against Arkansas, which if you go back and look at a lot of those 11 a.m. kicks last week, a lot of those teams kind of sleptwalk, whether it was Clemson, whether it was Auburn. They kind of sleptwalk through it. Wisconsin sleptwalk, and it cost them a victory. But Auburn kind of sleptwalked through the first half, and they were still able to go out in the second half and just absolutely destroy Arkansas. I'm not so worried about the fact that Mac Jones is going to be getting the start against an Arkansas team. It's more about the fact that his very first performance on that field against Tennessee was in that football game. Before Jared Garantano thought that he was 9 feet tall and wanted to dive over the line of scrimmage without doing the actual play that was called for him, you saw Tennessee in this football game. The thing about Mac Jones is when he came in, those eyes were like this big. Like he was, oh, what am I doing? Like, I guess I'm throwing. Okay, I am throwing. Oh, crap, I one-hopped it. And he kept one-hopping these receivers. That's not a chemistry issue. That is an emotion inside of you that is causing you to panic, to short arm, to not go through what you've practiced because you do have that elevated heart rate. What he did do well that you're going to have to see him work more on is he did hit some of these receivers in the chest when throwing the football. The problem was instead of hitting it in front of them, which is the reason why they've been scoring so many touchdowns on the slant route, he was throwing it behind them. That is all that timing. He should be better this week, but everything for him, 100% between the ears. He has got to calm down when getting on this football field, and hopefully this week against Arkansas, you will see him perform a little bit better because if Tua isn't ready for LSU, it's Mac Jones, and I don't know if Alabama can beat LSU with Mac Jones at quarterback.
They're all great points that you just made, Joe, and most of that was running through my mind as well because Mac Jones entered the game. We expected Alabama to be up by 4 to 5 touchdowns. I just wanted to see competitive football, and when Garantano made that move, I just thought, oh, I just wanted to see what would happen if they got within one score. They would have put the pressure on. They were playing better football. They came back from a couple scores down. They make it one score. They get another stop on defense, which they were doing time and time again. And man, just to see Alabama squirm a little bit there in the final 5 to 10 minutes, man.
The difference between Tennessee and Alabama in 2019 is the way that they maintained themselves in under normal circumstances, minus Devontae Smith throwing a punch. They don't ever make the dumb mental decisions and the dumb mental mistakes. Tennessee made multiple ones of those. Look, whether you think Darrell Taylor actually pushed off on Mac Jones and that should have been a personal foul or whatever it is, the fact is that was probably the last thing that he needed to do in that particular play where he could have just rolled off of him, gotten up, no big thing, and Tennessee is getting the football back down one score with all of the momentum. that one play totally changed the outcome of this football game because of the fact that Mac Jones then was able to kind of get into a rhythm and lead Alabama down the field, which eventually led to a touchdown. Garantano's the other one. If everything is right and the things that we're hearing, and you see the offensive line doing one thing and it doesn't match up with what Garantano was doing, and he actually went rogue on the play, that's another mental mistake that you cannot make in this situation when you're playing on the road against the number one team in the country and you actually have an opportunity to win the football game. Tennessee was in that football game. They were even in this football game with Tua still in the game. But the problem was they made too many mental mistakes, and that's the stuff that you cannot do, and you have to teach that team discipline, and Jeremy Pruitt is still having to do that. Tennessee's getting better. They shouldn't have been in this game. If you look at the stats and the numbers and how everybody played this season, Tennessee should not have been in this game. You don't even have to throw in the whole, it's the third Saturday in October. No, that doesn't matter. Alabama has wiped the floor with Tennessee numerous times in this game, and it isn't because this is a rivalry game. This game is not like others where it's always going to be close. No, Tua was making bad decisions. Tennessee, with their backup quarterback, was starting to go up and down the field on Alabama's defense. You started to really see a shift. And if that defensive play ends differently, where Darrell Taylor just gets up off of Mac Jones, no big deal, there is a real potential that Tennessee wins that football game. It was the mental mistakes that actually beat Tennessee last Saturday.
Will we see Tua in 2 weeks against LSU at home against the Tigers in what will be a mammoth showdown? Or if it's Mac Wilson, then does he develop and become a better quarterback and learn from his mistakes and shake off some of the nerves? Or does the spotlight become even bigger, because it will be, and does he not respond to that?
Well, and Mac Jones he's kind of the key to this whole thing, because we know now in 2019 with the college football playoff, if LSU does beat Alabama here in a couple of weeks and LSU goes on to win the SEC championship, they're in the college football playoff. Now the conversation will turn to Dallas and a Tua Tagovailoa that would be healthy by the time the college football playoff comes in. That is where in 2019, with the way this college football playoff works out, is we know hands down from an offensive standpoint, Alabama is one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team in the country offensively. Do you keep them out because they lost a football game where their Heisman Trophy contending quarterback was injured and didn't get to play? That is where this committee and the decision making, because if this was college basketball, Alabama's in because of that, because they take injuries into effect. This could throw a whole wrench into the college football playoff, and not only a team like Oregon be left out, but potentially, a Clemson. Let's be honest. If Ohio State and Oklahoma win out and LSU wins out, that fourth place, who's played better this football season, Alabama or Clemson? Clemson could be left out of the college football playoff just because they haven't played that well for the past season.
I actually like the reverse scenario, because LSU's got that Texas win on the road and a tougher schedule than Alabama. Do you leave them out? And with Alabama, with the home game against LSU has that, I don't want to say excuse, but having to play Alabama on the road, plus the Texas win, plus the more difficult SEC schedule, man, to distinguish Clemson, and we'll put Clemson there because of the weakness of the schedule, versus LSU with one loss, that's a tough call to make. Certainly, I think the Clemson brand and the reputation and what they've accomplished in the past would push them in. If that's Oregon or if that's Wisconsin or somebody else with a weak schedule versus an LSU, then maybe it plays out a little bit differently. But it would be fascinating to see what the committee would decide there.
Yeah, no, it would be. And with this could be that shift in the college football playoff, depending on if you're somebody that wants us to go to 6 teams or 8 teams, that you leave the national champions out of the college football playoff without losing a football game all season, and you put 2 SEC teams in because throughout the season they have proven to be the 2 best teams. This is where the decision-making inside of that room in Dallas, that's where they're really up against it, because every single year we kind of see a different scenario, whether it's a one-loss Ohio State team that their one loss was in Iowa, whether it was an Alabama team that ended up losing the last game of the regular season to the Auburn Tigers and not even winning their conference. There's something different every single year, and this could be the biggest change or the biggest decision that this college football playoff committee has to make. What if LSU were to win, or if you have Alabama and you have a Joe Burrow and a quarterback that won on the road against Texas, say they compete very well against Alabama or even go into overtime against Alabama. But you have this Clemson team that arguably the ACC isn't even one of the top 3 conferences in college football right now. Some people can argue that actually the Pac-12 is more competitive. What if Oregon runs the table, but their one loss in the season was to Auburn at the very beginning of the season, but they run the table in the Pac-12 and win that? There are way too many teams that are kind of on that number 3, number 4 spot that this LSU-Alabama game, depends on which way it goes, could have a major effect with the college football playoff.
Joe Hunk, the Fallout, 7:40 a.m. You can hear his passion, his for college football, for sports in general, and get a slice of it there on the Fallout 740. Joe, it's always a great conversation. Always appreciate you stopping by and giving us a slice of Auburn football talk and a little Alabama today.
Thank you so much, man. I always love being on with you.